Hello everybody. In this episode we're going to be checking out iZotope's Neutron 3. That is the latest iteration of Neutron. I never used Neutron or Neutron 2. I didn't use the earlier iterations. I did watch a couple of videos by different people, and they varied so massively in opinions and how they were using them. So I asked to try this out, this latest iteration, and sort of use it the way I would use it. So this is going to be quite interesting. And the great thing about this is, of course, iZotope are very generously giving us 3 copies to give away. So you can enter to win one of these 3 copies. Now, this is quite a smart device because they are comprehensive plugins that you can use essentially as channel strips. They have compression and EQ and gates and multibands and aural exciters and all kinds of different things that you can use on each individual channel. You can also use it to balance your mix. You can also use it to assess the sound itself and shape it. So you can say, hey, I'm mixing a kick drum, which we should start by doing. Mixing a kick drum, how do you want it to sound? And you can select how it will sound. I do think with any of these tools, no matter how good they are, they're only as good as your ears, because you have to choose what you want and you have to decide how good it's going to be. So when I watched a few of these videos, I realized the limitations were the limitations of the people using them, which is absolutely fine. You're not going to get an amazing result if you're not really sure what you want to achieve. So without further ado, I'm going to have a go at this, and we're going to try all the different things and what it can do. Now, this song is by Little Empire. It's a band I produced a couple of years ago now. And here is a final mix that you can hear a little bit.
To the touch, it hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises.
Now, one thing you're going to notice about that's the mix. So that's the mix that went on the album. There's a lot of reverbs in that. There's some reverse effects. And I think the reason why it's interesting to listen to that is, remember, this plugin, Neutron, it has gating. It has an exciter on it. It has multiband compression, compressors, all kinds of fun things. But it's not a fix-it-all as far as the effects are concerned. What I potentially like about this is the ability for things to sound fairly even and consistent quickly. So this is just the live drums. And I've got samples, but let's not worry about those at the moment. Here's the live drums. Super dry. As you can hear, the kick is all over the place. See there, when he's playing a slightly busier snare, he's not hitting his foot that hard. There's quite a lot of snare bleed, for instance. There's quite a lot of work that needs to be done just to that live drum sound. So let's take the kick drum and open up a mono instance of Neutron 3. This is nice. So it comes up and it gives me presets. Let's go with a preset for the schnitz and sniggles. So I'm selecting kick. And here you can see all of these different settings on the kick. Now this kick drum is an outside mic with a kick drum with no hole. It's pretty ugly sounding. So here is the kick with nothing applied to it. So what do I want to do? I want to make that, I want more sub on it, I want some low mids cut, and I need some more aggression. I'm going to go through these presets for a second. Is the 808 enhancement probably not applicable? Interesting what it's doing over here to the EQ. You can see it. It's cutting a lot of the low mids, which is nice. So here, the 909 chest pressure isn't cutting the low mids, but it's boosting some low frequencies here and some high frequencies there. Let's have a listen. That's actually a lot more in keeping with the kick that we're looking for. But it's interesting because it's boosting the lows, boosting the highs. But I like this idea because if you're going to provide a tool for everybody to use, it'd be nice to have presets that you can start with. Let's pull this back here to about 60 and have a listen. So immediately I'm using my ears. I'm going, oh, I like that preset. It's pretty close, but let's make it better. And then I might just go, oh, here, you know, here's some low mids, let's cut it. And what seems to be really nice, you see this function here? This is the Q. Just for ease of use, that's smart. I've never used this before in my life, and that makes sense. So I like that. Cool, so I like that. Now, we're not going to make a miracle out of this kick drum. This kick drum is, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, it's the outside of the drums, but let's try some fun things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the gate. Let's find this moment here where the kick drum is pretty quiet. I mean, the snare is almost as loud in it. I'm changing the release time here a little bit. I mean, with something like that, the kick drum is so bad, honestly, inside of your DAW, I'd probably do this. I mean, if you've got clip gain or volume trim, I mean, to be honest, this is one of those situations where it would be very, very smart of you to do that. So here I'm using clip gain. This is not a Neutron product, but it's, look. The next thing we can do, which is very, very nice, is use the transient shaper. So let's go to that. Let's increase the attack. On the bypass, have a listen. Oh, it's instantly better. There's still a lot of 100 in this, which I believe would interfere with the bass guitar. But the point is like, I'm using this like an all-in-one channel strip. It sounds great. It sounds really good. This is what we started with. Ugly. Some nice air on it. But this is where we ended up. Okay, so it's a really good channel strip. I like that. So a quick check out on the compression. Nice. Makes me want to go in and repair little pieces of audio. But again, you see, it's all about using your ears. So there's things that I want to improve. Oh, I see. This is nice. So basically I've got the gate, then I've got the Sculptor here. This Sculptor is really a nice idea. I was reading about this, and I think this could work really well. Let's have a listen. Yes. It's defaulted to 275 hertz. Typically, I'd probably come up to about 300. So what it's doing is it's literally pulling out around the area and boosting either side of it. It's a nice on kick drums, really smart. And exaggerate it. Oh yeah. You see and hear, most importantly, but if you look at the visual here, you'll see that a lot of low mids is being ducked. Ooh, that tone there. Oh, yeah. So, fun. So, I'm going to keep that. And I'm actually going to bypass it. And just for schnitz and schniggles, I'm going to grab another instance of this because I want to compare. So let's go to another instance of it, just for schnitz and schniggles. We're not going to use that. We're going to go to the mix assistant this time. So it says track enhance. Now remember, this kick drum is the worst recorded part of this drum kit. So that's the reason why we're using it to see what it can do. So track enhance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it what it is. You can auto-detect it. I'm sure it'll figure it out, but I want to make this quick. So kick, balance style, intensity medium. So I'm actually going to go aggressive and up front. See how dangerous we can make this. So here it says it's analyzing audio, setting up signal chain, setting Sculptor target, learning equalizer node frequencies. So this is what it has, the mix assistant has done. Here's the before. It's definitely kept a lot more of the low mids in than I did. It's a more natural, it's an improved but more natural sounding version of what I did. Interesting, it used a very similar thing here. So it's ducking 171, where I ducked on the EQ a lot wider than that. So I got rid of all that, ooh. I'm also effectively using the gate as well. I went a lot more aggressive and rock. So even though I went aggressive, asked it to be aggressive, it wasn't that aggressive. Let's think about this. So it's done this for me automatically. So let's pretend that this is where I started. Now what I could do is I could go down and go, okay, I want my kick drum to be more like a rock kick at about 60. So now I'm bringing it down to 60 here. And here, this ducking. A nice compromise. It's like somewhere between where it was before, more natural sounding, but it's not, the gate's not on. So the question is, do I want a gate to be on there? I am using, or I have available, a sample. If I blend the two together, let's put my one against the sample. So it comes back to taste. I definitely think my ear got us there quicker. We could take a gate here and move it to the front. See, I like this mix control here. If I want to go absolutely nuts, then obviously I'm not going to use the mix assistant for that. That's my decision. That's me, that's more gated, that's more aggressive. There, which is my manipulated version of what the mix assistant did, is more natural sounding, but more manipulated. So you see where we're going here. It really comes down to you using it as a creative tool. Because I did start off using the preset. I started off and used that 909 preset to build my sound. And that's where I started from, and then I started manipulating it. So anyway, so we got the kick here. Here's the kick and the kick sample. Okay, let's go to the snare. I like trying anything on it. That's the 808. Let's try biting snare. Tighten and tame snare. Let's have a listen to this. So if that's just one part of a snare, that's okay. So here's the Sculpt, the EQ. Wow. It's quite aggressive. It's quite aggressive what it's doing. If I throw in, I've got a really super ringy snare sample, so I've put that in with the kicks. It's given me a very kind of SSL-y kind of spankiness to it. I bring in the snare bottom. Now, with none of this on, back on. No shortage of attack on that transient shaper, so I'm bringing that down. So it's giving me a drum sound that I want with me using my ears on this. Now I wonder, so for a hat, I don't know if I'd really necessarily do anything drastic to the recording. Let's open up another instance. So we've got harsh hats, that's not what we want. Hi-hat processing, let's see what that sounds like. Interesting. So I suppose what's happening here, which is very useful for people who are just starting out, is it's taking away a little bit of the super aggressive kind of high mid here, and it's getting rid of some super lows down there. Now, what I think would be interesting is to see what it does on the mixing assistant. So let's do the track enhance. So we got cymbals. I'm just going to do balanced and medium and see what it does. Again, it's exaggerated some of the high mids and given it some aggression, but this is a situation where I felt like the hi-hat processing was sort of the way to go. Bringing in a soft tube saturation is kind of interesting because it's distorting the high mids first. So I suppose the reality is like what's happening there just by using the preset is something you could pretty much do with your own ears and knowing what you wanted to do with an EQ really quickly. But the reality is a lot of beginners are not going to know that. So individually on the hi-hat, using the preset really just is a much better way of going than even using the mixing assistant. I feel like this is what you have to do. You have to be smart enough to choose where to use something and where not to. Let's go back to the overheads. See, for me on an overhead like that, I would just probably pull out some low mids and duck the super, super lows. Let's see what it does if we go and just select it. Okay, so I'm going to the harsh hats. It says remove harsh sibilants and anything else that may be causing trouble. That's actually kind of nice. I like the fact that I can just add an EQ and it's immediately there. It's cool. So here's like a multi-band compressor. Got just kind of nice. Oh, that's doing a lot of work in that mid-range. If I turn it off. It's really helped add that snare drum and give it a kind of a little tidier, I don't know, a bit more of a snap to it. So I'm going to go back to the hats here and try the harsh hats on this. Nice. So where that defaulted on the harsh hats is great. So there you go. I learned something on the overheads. I used a hat setting to remove the overhead sounding too harsh, pulled out some low mids, thought, oh, that's good. I'll go back and use it on the hats. So again, great channel strip. Lots of things built into one. Okay, I'm enjoying the drums where we're at. I'm just going to add, let's go and check out the toms. This should be interesting. Okay. That floor tom is pretty close to what I want it to be. And let's go to tom. Let's go to the toms, go to floor tom mic. Isolate the floor tom and boost the attack and low end. Ooh, nice. Okay. Bypass. That's cool. I mean, it's doing much more than I needed to do. I suppose if I put that in with the overheads, they're sort of evening each other out. But I'm not sure if I need it to be quite so much. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the mixing assistant. Let's see what it comes up with. So what we'll do is we'll loop that little section of toms, and we'll go track enhance, next, auto detect. We're going to make sure it knows that it's a tom. And I'm going to go up front and aggressive, and let's see what it does. That sounds exactly what I want the floor tom to be. There's a bit of ring on the tom. I suppose I could end up, I'm accepting that. I suppose I could end up putting, it's not in there, a little. It's pulled out some nice low mids there. It's done some really fun things. It's good for me because I know what I want and how I want it to work. I like what it did there on the toms. I'm just going to copy that setting over to the rack and see how that works over there. So listen to that in solo. Let's just use the mix assistant again. Track enhance. Great, toms, same settings. Accept it. It's essentially doing the same things as the other one. I like that a lot. Okay, so that was a quick and easy way of getting my toms to sound better. Let's throw in the overheads. This is all the instances of the Neutron 3 that I'm using. Let's turn them all off. Back on. Definitely more focused and punchy. What I would now do is bust those drums together. Now there's a bit more punch from the kick and the snare in particular, and a little bit more low mids cut from the toms, cut from the overheads, cut from the hi-hats. I could now bust those together and compress them and make them hit a little harder. That way it would really allow us to get more energy out of the drums. Particularly like what's happening there with the snare top. I like that little extra spank. Once again, without. Cool. So, quick, effective way of working. Let's try it on something completely different. And why don't we bus? What I'm going to do is I'm going to bus two elements of the bass together. So I'm going to bus the DI and the amp. This is a little untoward what I would normally do, because I normally would treat them differently, then bus them together. But I want to see if it can deal with some of the idiosyncrasies and the inaccuracies of a DI and a bass amp. Because I believe when I played this, and this is me playing it, it's really just a demo bass sound. So this is the young bass player. He's very inconsistent in his performance. It's distorting and overdriving on the DI here and there. It sounds like it needs a lot of work. If I put the two together. So it's overdriving, all kinds of craziness. Okay, so let's see what the Neutron will do for us. I mean, for a lot of beginners, if they were given this, that would confuse the schnizzle out of them. They'd be like, what am I supposed to do with that? So I'm going to see what it can do. Go for the growl. I actually really like that. It sounds like what he was trying to do and who he was trying to be. I'm just going to go down a little lower with this. It's 102. I'm going to go to about 80. Taking this here down to about 80-ish. There you go. As before. It's growling, it's still a little overdriven and all the things that he was doing where he was farting out on the performance, but it's got some great mid-range and now it's got some low lows. So there you go. I mean, there's a good example of how the mix assistant is going to work. I mean, it's saved me a lot of work. I've got an exciter going on here and a compressor. Now it's really ugly. On its own, that is a very, very ugly bass sound. But you have to remember something, it's not going to be on its own. A lot of that disgustingness is going to get sucked up. I'm going to put in some guitars. Obviously, I want to add some verbs and stuff to that. There's some, like, on my original mix, I had some delays and stuff on the guitars to add that exaggeration of that movement. That's me playing guitars on that. And on the vocal, of course, which we're about to add, there would be reverbs as well. But let's, talking the vocal, let's see what happens on just working on the vocal. Here's the vocal and solo.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me.
So she's super dynamic. There's compression going on, but not a huge amount because it was sort of choking. And so she's very in and out. I mean, I'm exaggerating for effect, but she's a very dynamic singer. So let's go. Let's open up Neutron. Obviously, I'm going to go to a vocal setting here. And aggressive parallel vocals, all out distortion, bandpass, cheap mic, dynamic, vocal de-esser, female backgrounds, female pop, female basic, female filtered, forward lead vocal. Let's go for forward lead vocal. Either that or I might hear female series compression, but let's try this out.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore.
It's quite interesting what it's doing.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore.
I like it. So it's definitely evening up a lot of those words that are disappearing, both with some mid-range push on the EQ and with compression. This is the female series compression.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me.
There's a part of me that likes that high-end boost that's going on in that one, but I actually sort of like the forward lead vocal more.
Our empire has crumbled.
Maybe I don't need some of the super, super low, so I can come in here a little bit.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises.
There's a bit of a multi-band going on about 7K.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me.
So I'm not using as much of that. Okay, so that's me slightly manipulating, bringing the high pass up, reducing some of that multi-band, because what they're doing is they're ducking for de-essing. So let's go to the mixing assistant, and it's track enhance. Auto detect, I'm just going to go vocals. Intensity medium, aggressive, balanced. I'm going to make it aggressive. Why not? We're going everything aggressive.
Our empire has crumbled.
Okay, accept this.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me.
Now, definitely some compression going on here. I hear some of the ambience behind. The exciter.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me.
You can hear the compression coming in there on some of that quieter thing, and you hear the ambience of the room coming on with the amount of compression going on.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch.
There's a vintage mode here that's been enabled. I think that's the crunch or something, the EQ. Did you hear a little bit more crunch on it? I'm going to listen to it in context. It feels like it's taking out and boosting the highs a little bit too much in solo. But remember, we don't listen to music in solo. At least real people don't. Only us engineering types do. So let's hear what that sounds like with all of that.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises, held strong by both of our dreams. How could we let our world come apart at the sea?
Cool. I like it. It's a little thin for me. Let's go see what's going on with the EQ. There's a little bit of a boost at about 350, 388 it says there. The high pass, I'm going to pull back the high pass a little bit. I'm going to add some little lows here.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore.
Pull some of that pure mid-range back in, about 1K here, so not as drastic. Now 3K is a little aggressive for me. I think that's going to exaggerate.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises, held strong by both of our dreams. How could we?
So I like the exciter, but I feel like it might be exaggerating too much of the S's and stuff, so I'm going to bring that down.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises, held strong by both of our dreams. How could we let our world? Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises, held strong by both of our dreams. How could we let our world come apart at the seams? We were a good one. Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore to the touch.
There's a little bit more grit and distortion that comes in there. I think it's probably the vintage mode.
Our empire has crumbled sore to the touch. It hurts worse inside me. What happened to our paradise? Reinforced with promises, held strong by both of our dreams. How could we let our world?
I don't mind it a little bit on there. I kind of like a little bit of that crunch. What I'm doing is that second compressor is a bit more aggressive, so I'm bringing the mix down.
Our empire has crumbled and left me so sore.
I'm also bringing down the exciter a bit.
Our empire has crumbled and left.
There's some good choices that it made in the auto mode, but I manipulated it. I brought a little bit more lows back in. I went back and I listened to the original vocal and said, it's taking off too much lows. I also felt like the exciter was adding a bit too much S's and T's, so suddenly I wanted to de-S it, so I backed off the exciter. Again, great tools, but you have to know how to manipulate them to do the job you want them to do. So far, I mean, they've been working really well, but I've been using them to taste. Again, the videos I watched before, it seemed to be based around like, you know, the ability of the user to understand how to manipulate it to what the result they want to get. You may want to overdrive it even more. You may be wanting to use the vintage drive, vintage EQs and hit them a little harder. There's something else that this does, and that is balance the mix for you. So if you're a beginner, this actually is quite a nice tool. I haven't tried it yet, so we'll see what it sounds like. But essentially, we put this relay plugin on all of the sources. And then we go to Mix Assistant up here, and we hit balance. Not track enhance, but balance. And then you'll see here it says insert compatible plugins, which we already have. It says reset track volume to default. So all of the volumes, as you can see, are all set at 0. And then I hit got it and select a focus for your mix. Interesting. I suppose if I'm going to select a focus, I'm going to select the lead vocal. So let's find the lead vocal. Here it is. Okay, so I hit the star button over there, and that is the lead vocal. And now it says begin listening. So we're going to do it from El Topo. The whole song. Okay, going to the results. Checking all the classifications here. Looks right. Doesn't look like it's messed anything up. Yeah? Okay. So that's good. Let's have a listen. Remember, there's no compression or EQ on the vocal here. I'm just turning it up because it's the focus here. And the reason why I'm using it as the focus rather than all the vocals. There's no compression, there's no EQ, there's no effects on any of that. I actually brought the lead vocal up on the focus control, and then I brought it back down. It's pretty much where it started off on. Honestly, is that going to win awards and be the world's greatest mix? No, but is it close to being a balanced mix that you can start compressing and EQing? Yeah. It's actually not bad. No, it's not amazing, but then you need to apply compression, you need to apply EQ because things are ducking and coming in and out. The drums sometimes are just slamming, and then there's some hits that are just a little bit down, or you know what I mean? All of that stuff we started to address when we were doing individual compression EQ. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to see what this plugin would do from just straightforward zeroed out. It's pretty darn good. So when I'm doing mixes, and I talk about this a lot, when we've done a lot of these in the box mixes, you know, and we stream them live, I'll start by doing a static mix. We would do it on an SSL as well. We do it inside of the box, where we just play everything, and you watch me, and I will pull together the mix in pretty much in real time and pan it around and get a balance. Now, I've been doing this for a gazillion years, so I can do that fairly quickly and get something that's fairly listenable like this without a lot of work because I'm used to this. There's a couple of things I would change about this, but it's closer than when the faders were all at 0. Now the rest of it's just personal taste. What is good about this? This is going to be really good for somebody who wants to move fast, but more importantly, for somebody who's just getting into this, probably in the first few years of doing this. And when I don't mean like few months, I mean few years. I watch videos with people that are doing balances and mixes and teaching, and the mixes are all over the place. I'm sure you've watched them too. I mean, it takes a long time, a lot of acquired knowledge to be able to just quickly go in there and balance something. So does this sound like a #1 hit? No, it doesn't. It still needs work. But did it do a rough balance that now allows me to choose whether I want to do more compression or EQ, or what to make more aggressive, less aggressive, brighter, darker, you know, add effects? Yes, this really helps. So for me, I think it's a great tool for that. I'm impressed. I think it's really, really cool. What we should do is turn off all the relays like this, and have you listen to what it sounds like before. This is what it sounds like now. Vocals are nice and balanced. Turn off the relays. It's going to get a lot louder, so let's bring the volume down a little bit. Back on. Let's create a good, quick, rough mix. Needs a lot more work, but it sounds good. I like what it's doing. I like the idea of it. I like the fact that it will help a lot of beginners get going and start to understand how to make things work. It still needs a ton of compression and EQ. It still needs a lot of that work. But I don't think that's the point, especially when you're dealing with like EDM stuff and you've got a lot of instruments that are like printed super like undynamic. This will help balance things out. Probably in that world, this is an invaluable tool. As you can see here for the drums, for instance, they're unbelievably dynamic. There is a kick and snare sample, but 90% of the drums are all over the place. So that needs compression and EQ. If that was an EDM track or a hip hop song, each kick and snare would almost be the same velocity. You know, unless there was something deliberately printed to have a ghosting effect. Most of it's just slamming and hitting. So it would make what we're doing even easier still. So it's a nifty little thing. I like what it's doing. You still need to EQ, you still need to compress, you still need to use effects, but it could be a quick and easy way for somebody who's just beginning to get a balance going that will give them something to work from. Something that will tell them what they need to improve and how they need to compress and EQ. Great stuff. Anyway, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you can enter to win one of 3 copies of this plugin. Thank you ever so much for watching. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. If you've started to use this or you used the previous one or whatever, please give us a bunch of comments and questions below. I really appreciate you watching and I appreciate all your amazing support. You're an incredible community. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.